Cool. All right, everybody, how's it going? You've reached us here at Native Opinion. We are an indigenous information and education radio show and podcast. And every week we talk about current affairs related to and from our own Native American perspectives. My name is Michael Kicking Bear. And the gentleman sitting, let's see, if you're looking at us to my left, there, he is Mr. David Grayall.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you may be on this big blue marble.
Big blue marble, love it. I love that description, actually.
How are you, brother?
I'm okay. I was just going to say, I meant to tell you on the pre-show kind of thing, pre whatever that is that we do when we talk. Nobody knows but you and me. If my voice sounds funny, I think it's allergies, right? And so my voice, I think, sounds scratchy, but yeah, that's what's going on with that. But other than that, I'm doing okay, other than, the shoulder thing, right? But
yeah, once they get it fixed and you recover in rehab, you'll be glad it's done.
Yeah, like, can I vent just very briefly about the medical system in this country?
Sure, I do it all the time.
Pertaining to workman's comp. So let's see, how do I say this without going into a whole lot of excruciating detail? I got hurt on the job, right? Fell down a bank.
Comp sucks. That sums it up.
Yep, pretty much. And so let's see, what was that? Did you hear that noise?
Yeah, that was on my end. It's kids running up and down the road on ATVs.
Oh, another reason David Grayall is moving. Right?
Yeah.
You know what's funny is my cousin, my tribal cousin who lives across the street from me, her son, every single summer, it doesn't matter. I think he's still living at home, but even if he wasn't, I know he'd go home and pull out his motorbike and just all over the neighborhood, really, really loud and stuff, and but she curbs it though after about this time, like 7 or 8 o'clock at night. She has them come in and stuff because it's like loud. It's like the kid doesn't believe in a muffler, right? We were that way when we were kids, though, right? Wasn't it? Yeah. We just we built motorbikes. It was kind of like, okay, what would happen if?
True.
But I was talking about workman's comp, and so it took a month to get through all the paperwork. I guess I'll sum it up that way. It took a month to get through all the paperwork for workman's comp. And the workman's comp person called me up and said, "Well, you're all set. All you gotta do is schedule your surgery with your doctor. Everything's great." So I waited 2 more weeks, right? And finally called my doctor and I said, "Hey, did you and workman's comp talk and work it out?" And they're like, "Nope, we haven't heard a thing."
Wow.
So meanwhile, my arm is burning more and more every day. It feels like it's going to fall off, right?
Yeah.
So that's something else I have to resolve this week. So basically, I, as the patient, apparently, and I don't know if anyone else that watches or listens to this show has gone through this themselves with a workman's comp case, but now I feel like I have to become the arbiter, right? And get the doctor's office rather, and the workman's comp person and go, "You guys work it out and let me know when you have your S together. And I would love it if you would do that yesterday."
Yeah, you have to be your own patient advocate because it's in workman's comp's best interest not to do what they need to do.
Well, my tribe is paying them, and not to sound like a spoiled little brat, but this freaking thing hurts, and I just wish, because I guess what annoys me is when I hand everybody all the appropriate information. I gave my doctor's office, the workman's comp info, and I gave the workman's comp folks my doctor's number and all that stuff, and they still can't seem to make this stuff work. I don't understand, So I'm like, do I have to lead them by the hand? Give me your hand. Come here. Give me your hand. Meet.
Be honest. Yep, you do. You've got to be your own patient advocate because they'll screw around and lose you in the in the weeds.
Yeah. Well, we'll deal with it. We'll deal with it. So, but you guys didn't come here to hear me complain, or my brother here, who already heard me complaining earlier about something else. So he's technical stuff that he doesn't need to experience. What I put him through it anyway. I'm sorry, brother.
No problem.
But you have come here to listen to us talk about other stuff. So how you can reach us here on the show is you can email us, hosts with an S, hosts at nativeopinion.com. You can reach us out at Twitter. It's at Native Opinion over there. Our Facebook page, it's facebook.com/Native Opinion Podcast. You can reach us through there. Our website, of course, nativeopinion.com. And we're also an audio podcast as well as video. And so you can subscribe to the show through any of the normal podcast directories. You can get us that way too. You can also leave us a voicemail or a text message at 860-800-5595. 860-800-5595 is that number there. So please, by all means, give us a jingle, shout, or whatever else is going on.
Absolutely. And watch out for monkeypox.
You hear them hyping the crap out of that?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it's a real thing. I know that, but the news media, like, it's almost like they're disappointed that, like, presumably we're trying very hard and moving COVID behind us, but they're like, we need something, monkeypox, and it's like, I literally thought they were making it up when I first heard it,
No, it's truly a real thing.
Like, what is it? I'm like, that can't be a new COVID strain, I was like, who the hell's naming these things? This is what I was thinking, right?
Oh, man.
But I was like, Jesus, I don't know.
Well, we want to thank you all for being listeners and subscribers to the podcast here at Native Opinion. And we appreciate each and every one of you for your patronage
Absolutely.
and your support. And speaking of patrons, if you would like to become a patron, you can see how to do that on our website at nativeopinion.com/support. And on our Facebook page, just click on the Learn More button. And we have a new patron this week, Isaac. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So be like Isaac. Become a patron. Become a subscriber to the show. And another great way to help is by telling your friends, family, and colleagues about the show. And give us a 5-star review on iTunes. And again, we thank you all for listening, sharing the show, and growing with us and helping us grow.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Also want to thank all of you that have checked out us at MoheganTradingPost.com. And some of you have bought some products there. We appreciate that very, very much. And again, you can look and see what we've got there at MoheganTradingPost.com. I've been saying this for the last few weeks. We are building a new website. It's just taking us a little while. Retail is not easy online, in my opinion. When you have a lot of products and stuff like that. One of the things we're trying to get online, as I said, is a pretty large bead supply inventory that we have, and learning a lot about that, brother.
Oh, I bet.
Like, I've never messed with barcodes, for example, and stuff like that. So,
oh, that's fun.
Oh yeah, but the old site is still up, and so by all means, please check us out there, MoheganTradingPost.com. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mohegan Trading Post. Well, this is episode 403.
It is.
We have answers and solutions gained through experience.
Well, not us personally, but
not us personally. But indigenous people, absolutely.
Two things I will not give you guys advice on: law and legal, and finances. Simple
Alrighty.
as that. Yeah.
So, what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to talk about a growing recognition that indigenous communities are among the most vulnerable to the effects of climate change.
Yep.
And that traditional ecological knowledge is vital. So that's what I meant by we have the answers and solutions gained through experience. Mm-hmm. Native people have solutions, and we've gained that experience just by the mere fact that we live in the environments that are being destroyed.
The United States federal government, and most recently, in the past couple of years, really, I can almost tie it to the day that Deb Haaland took office as the Secretary of the Interior. Have been holding a lot of sessions on quote unquote ecological knowledge, and my advice to them, without sounding completely belligerent, is please listen and
Take
try
notes.
take our notes, try our suggestions, and don't change the way we suggest. That
Right.
seems to always be the issue. Is like, I can make that better. And that's kind of what got us here in the first place, guys. So
You ever hear of the Asian carp?
yes, uh-huh.
That's one of those things that where they said, I can make this better.
Yep.
And now you have fish assaulting boaters going down.
This is what happens when a particular population of fish in the Illinois River is startled.
Yeah, oh, right around back, behind the boat. Wow. Watch out, they're everywhere.
These are silver carp, the most notorious of the Asian carp family. Many believe the Illinois River has the densest population of silver carp in the nation.
That's kind of ground zero on this invasion.
Asian carp were introduced to the United States in the 1970s to control algae in catfish farms in the South. In the 1980s, floodwaters allowed the carp to escape and infest the Mississippi River basin.
When it comes to the river systems, if it's connected, if it's got a direct connection to the Mississippi or the Illinois River, it's going to have these fish in it.
Asian carp not only disrupt the food chain, push out native fish, are a nuisance to boaters, but they are also extremely dangerous.
Yeah, this is about an average size silver carp. This is the one that can hurt you when it jumps. If your boat's going 20, 30 miles an hour and this guy hits you, it's going to leave a mark.
It was a flying silver carp that broke this woman's jaw as she participated in a sport created for the sole purpose of hunting this nuisance fish. Their population is growing at a rapid pace. The females can lay 2 million eggs a year, and they grow rapidly.
Once they get to a certain size, we don't have a predator that's capable of eating them, and they're just running unchecked.
So how do we get rid of them? Some say if you can't beat them, eat them. They believe that creating an appetite for silver carp will hold their population in check.
The vision about all this is to literally educate our people how to eat this fish.
But getting Americans to eat silver carp has been challenging.
People in this country just don't seem to want to pick around the bones. The biggest problem with these fish are that the fillets are filled with bones.
Now there is concern that Asian carp have a path out of the rivers and into the Great Lakes through the Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal. So a multi-million-dollar electronic barrier has been constructed to potentially stop the migration.
With the barriers in place, we are effectively plugging the biggest hole for the movement of these fish. It would be very difficult for fish to just swim right through this waterway behind us.
But not everyone is convinced. So cleaning, training, and drying boats every time they come out of the water can prevent the tiny microscopic creatures who lurk there from ending up in lakes and rivers where they shouldn't call home. It's the best defense we have against the ever-growing world of the silent invaders.
But yeah, but I mean, you guys can probably look for it on YouTube. Just just Google Asian carp and on YouTube. I get to say Google because they own the damn thing, right?
Right.
But somebody got on my case about that the other day. I was like, that I go, doesn't YouTube, aren't they owned by Google? Yeah, but the guy was trying to make me feel old, right? I'm like, and sometimes I feel that way. You ever get in these conversations, brother, where some of these young kids talk about whatever online, and I said, well, and you catch yourself, right? You go, well, during my day, we didn't have YouTube. We didn't. They started that kind of. In fact, we beta tested YouTube. And then I took a step back, and it's like, damn, we did.
Yep.
But yeah, it was just funny. They just
Yeah.
go off on this stuff.
And experts say 2022 looks grim for the river. The irrigation season is likely to be brief and dry.
Absolutely. And to build on that, I thought we'd have a conversation about Lake Mead today. It is drying up as well, so we will talk about that and discover what they have discovered. So, yeah. But all right, let's go. Let's go.
Well, why indigenous communities need a seat at the table on climate? That's been evident to us for decades
Yep.
upon decade upon decade. Now, the conversation, which is a news organization, had a little sit down chat with some folks, and we'll kind of share what they talked about. And this information comes from Indian Country Today, and it was penned by Ray Menniacon. Ray, if you're listening and I mispronounced that, please forgive me. Please forgive me. I know I butchered that name terribly.
I've
Okay.
done this a million times myself. So
So, why do indigenous communities not have a seat at the table? Why is that?
Yeah.
Nobody has an answer from the non indigenous community. Nobody has an answer.
I have a few.
So do I.
Yep.
Now, for indigenous people, we want to make sure that we're the ones who hold the knowledge of our ancestors, and that should be the case. Who else should hold the knowledge of our ancestors? It shouldn't be non indigenous people. We should be the ones to help our own people come to grips with the things that are important to us as indigenous people.
Particularly since climate change was not our invention either.
No, it was not. And we didn't set this ball, this flaming ball, I should say, rolling down the hill.
Nope.
Truly.
Nope. Ask anybody, and this is true, I would say, of even non-indigenous people that have a solid connection with our planet. Ones that aren't out there trying to destroy it. They will tell you They will all tell you that these are not people, if you will, that respect the earth, that they created this. There's
Nope.
just no way.
So we're building upon those things that we were left. And to us, they're assets. And the things our ancestors left us, they're powerful. And we have, for millennia, looked after and cared for, the creation and taught people the right way of living with the land. So where did it go wrong? What went wrong? I attest that when colonization began, that's when things started to go downhill. With the environment specifically, that's what I'm specifically speaking of. So, what happened? Well, think about it. The invaders needed places to live, so they started clear cutting large swaths of forest.
Yep.
Did they plant the trees back? Nope.
Nope.
They
By and
started
large, no.
burning. I'm sorry?
By and large, no.
No. They started burning acre upon acre of forest for farming. Did they put the trees back? Nope. Not at all. Now, we ask ourselves, who gave these people permission to come and invade our country and do all this destruction, not only to our land, but also to the people on the land? Nobody gave them permission. Their languages were forced upon us. We've asked, when are you going to stop your destructive policies and practices and start listening to us and take notice of how we look after the land and how we prevented big things like brush fires and other kinds of things from our elders' wisdom? When are you going to listen? Now, as Native people, we had mitigation strategies that were taught to us. Now, I know it might be difficult for a lot of non-natives to understand, but the land already had its laws. And we, as Native peoples, abided by those laws,
Yep, not the other way around.
not the other way around. They're perfect. The law is simple, or one of the laws is simple. What you need is here. Don't abuse it. How simple is that?
See, it's about balance. Okay.
It's all about balance.
So, through our creation stories and beyond, and also, that knowledge being handed down generation to generation on the way things were done a specific way. And when colonization started, as you already said, brother, they were paying attention to how we lived. But then, like I said a few minutes ago, then they suddenly said, well, we can make things better. We can then make things more productive. We can make things more efficient. Pick a word. All right.
Yeah.
And that and that was translated into overforestation, for example, based on greed, because it wasn't them cutting trees down just enough to build a town. It went well beyond that.
Well, the Amazon rainforest is a great example of that.
Absolutely.
You only have to just look
Yep.
at how much the Amazon has changed in the last 40 years.
Yeah, in fact, this is what's great about video. Now, while you keep talking, brother, I will find some deforestation from there, and I'll put it up on the screen.
Thank you.
Yep.
Now, the indigenous individual that's sharing this conversation was the author of this piece. And he was asked what he thought about the UN Climate Change Conference in Glasgow, or COP26. And, the author said that he was left disillusioned. And I agree. Indigenous people have been at the forefront of climate change destruction, but we don't have a seat at the table. And what that means is we have been affected the most by the climate change destruction, Native peoples all over the globe. And we don't have a seat at the table. Time and time again, we try to make our voices heard to ensure people realize that fossil fuels and other extractive policies and developments are always harmful to the earth and to our human existence. So you would think that 60,000 years, of experience would mean something. For millennia, we've kept the earth in pristine condition because we knew what we had to do to protect it. And it's a simple process. Just don't abuse Mother Earth. As I said a moment ago, Mother Earth provides us with everything we require and everything we need. Just don't abuse it. And it's only been 200 years that we've seen an incredible devastation and degradation and destruction of our environment in so many ways that it's left us feeling sick spiritually, mentally, and physically. But, it's those nations that have been uh, colonized that have had the loudest voices. We've had to speak the loudest to say enough is enough. The Australian pavilion at the COP26 was supported by the fossil fuel industries and coal mining industries. Those extractive industries, of course, say they're the ones that are going to give us solutions to climate change.
Mm-hmm.
That's just like the fox saying, "Leave me the key. I won't eat your chickens. I
Yeah,
promise."
exactly. I promise. I'll be good.
Yeah.
I'll
And
be
the author
good.
goes on to say he found out that they were just saying what they were saying was so hypocritical and deceitful, and he was left depressed with a lot of questions. And he says he felt like he came away with no hope at all. And I can understand that. So why is it that no one wants to take a page out of, I'm going to say, our playbook on how to stop this insanity and hopefully mitigate what's happening to the climate? When is someone going to listen? Never. We have
Exactly.
answers and solutions. Truly. So we'll have to see if they are going to pay attention. It's literally not rocket science. It's just agreeing to do what's right, doing what you need to do when you need to do it. Stop abusing and destroying Mother Earth. There's no need to over extract. I understand extraction of resources as it's brought us to the point that we're at now. And our societies around the globe now depend upon materials extracted from the earth. Well, find other solutions, find other materials to use. Learn different mechanics. Learn different ways to create what we consume. Stop doing it at the expense of Mother Earth, because what you do to the earth, we do to ourselves.
Yep.
Why is that such a hard concept to grasp?
It's not, but like we've already touched upon a little bit tonight or today, whichever time you guys get this. It's about greed at the end of the day.
It's
You-
about
you-
greed.
You're not going to convince a corporation that makes billions of dollars over the course of whatever time period that nothing to see here, right? They think everything is just hunky dory, fine, and and above all else, they'll sit there and tell you that it's not their fault. Always love that. Nothing to see here, not my fault for what's going on in the world, right?
Right.
So, but basically, sorry, I'm playing around with settings here, and it is at this point, it's everybody's problem, even if we're not the ones who created the issue to begin with, we're still feeling the effects of it, and I just wish that people would be a little more honest about it.
You'll if you're old enough, you'll know that there was no farmland in the Amazon 60 years ago.
Right. Yep. Well, here, hopefully this should play, brother. If the audio might be a little bit choppy, we'll see. But this is a simulation, I guess, of what things looked like before we started cutting trees down. So hopefully this.
Yeah, I was going to say almost in all cases, there's no recovery.
Yep.
So there's a reason why the plains grasses existed. There was a reason why the trees, the multiple forests around the world existed. And we've clear cut most of those forests down to the dirt
Yep.
without any kind of plans to restore most of those. Yes, there have been some replanting, but those are trees that have been genetically engineered to grow fast and create substandard lumber. It was created for the lumber industry, not to save Mother Earth.
Nope.
So, climate change to the degree that we've seen didn't have to happen. It's self induced by mankind. And we are all suffering because of someone's greed.
Yep. People have to, they have to come to grips with that. You know, it, it, it just is that moral imperative, right? That again, it requires a number of things. I'm not trying to simplify it because it's not there's no one quick fix. I mean, we know this from the people that are trying to come up with common sense solutions for for these challenges. It's the areas. I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but again, if you're new watching or listening to the show, I made this point before, which is you're hearing discussions like we need to go to electric vehicles so that we're reducing our dependency on oil and gas and things like that. So one half of that is true, but the other half that your news media fails to comment on regularly is that lithium mining has to increase, not just here in the United States, of which I think there's only 2 large lithium mines, and they're trying to use estimates like for every person that's driving a gasoline powered vehicle, whatever that total is, at least outwards to 1/3 to 1/2 are going to need to switch to combustion, away from combustion engine vehicles to an electric vehicle, right? Well, there isn't enough lithium that you can mine in the United States alone, so that means it has to come from somewhere else, and that is just as destructive to mine lithium as it is oil and gas. But again, the people that are responsible, presumably, to bring you responsible reporting are not telling you that. And so I have a big problem with that. If you're going to come up with solutions to combat climate change honestly, then that has to be part of the equation of the discussion. You're not just going to swap out combustion engines for electric vehicles unless you have a better way of storing electricity that isn't going to harm the damn planet.
Absolutely. I know we just showed a video on the tree degradation around the world. But trees aren't the only organisms that produce oxygen. Grasses produce oxygen. And one of our biggest oxygen producers in the world is phytoplankton. And people may be saying, well, what the heck is phytoplankton? Phytoplankton is plant-based plants that are aquatic, like in your oceans. Our oceans are loaded with phytoplankton, and they release an enormous amount of oxygen into the atmosphere. They release actually more than trees into the atmosphere. So when you cut down the trees, you're also endangering their plant cousins in the aquatic environment. You create cycles that cause acidification of the oceans. It increases pollution when root systems are destroyed because they can't stop and collect things that run into our waterways and destroy phytoplankton.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot that's involved in the cycle of life on this earth. And we are destroying it at such a fast rate that we may not be able to reverse the damage. So, indigenous folks, we're not responsible for that. We've been trying to tell people, hey, this has got to stop. This needs to happen. This is what you can do to help mitigate X, Y, and Z. But greed and dishonesty rules the day.
Correct.
So,
And in my view, that has to be addressed as strongly as supposedly climate change battles.
oh, sure. In my opinion, first and foremost, the greed and dishonesty needs to be addressed first.
Yep.
You know, they can blow smoke up people's butts all day long telling them we have a solution, like they mentioned in the article.
You know, here's the thing, and you guys know that, you know, I have disdain for both political parties pretty much at this point. You know what I mean? And here's the thing: if Democrats were so serious about, you know, fighting climate change is the way the Biden administration tries to position it, then why did he still approve a number of oil and gas leases? And here, let me throw some ire at the Republican Party, who said that wasn't enough. So you have two major political parties in this country that still want to produce oil and gas, but one party is saying that they're very, very worried about climate change. Please. And these are the folks that are responsible for, you know, enacting legislation or creating new laws.
That's the smoke up the derriere that I mentioned.
Yep. And so there's no real discussion about, there's no real action rather in that direction. And we just know this. So, you know, it's up to us to just say we don't care. I'm trying not to be irrationally irresponsible with my statements here. I'm not telling anybody not to obey the laws, but, you know, we all sadly have to take a piece of this and try to solve it because of the irresponsibility of those I've already discussed and mentioned, because they're all guilty, all of them, past and present.
Yep.
So,
yep. All right.
I had found another rainforest video, brother.
Let's see it.
I don't know. Let's see if I could call this up as well. I guess it makes more sense to pull it from my local drive. I guess it's fast enough. So, so again, these are just stuff I'm pulling. I haven't vetted any of this. So, but let's check this out.
Relentless destruction of rainforest continuing despite COP26 pledge. Pristine rainforests were once again destroyed at a relentless rate in 2021, according to new figures, prompting concerns governments will not meet a COP26 deal to halt and reverse deforestation by the end of the decade. From the Brazilian Amazon to the Congo Basin, the tropics lost 11.1 in hectares of tree cover last year, including 3.75 m² of primary forest critical to limiting global heating and biodiversity loss. Boreal forests, mainly in Russia, experienced a record loss in 2021 driven by the worst wildfire season in Siberia since records began. According to new data from the University of Maryland released by a Global Forest Watch, experts called the continued forest loss a disaster for action on global heating and said the 143 governments that pledged to halt and reverse forest loss by 2030 at COP26 held in Glasgow had to urgently make good on their commitment. Of the primary rainforest that was lost in 2021, releasing the equivalent of India's annual fossil fuel emissions, 40% disappeared in Brazil, with the Democratic Republic of Congo, Bolivia, Indonesia, and Peru.
Let me just pause that. 40% in one area alone that they lost. I mean, that's just insane to me.
It is. And, you know, we're not beating the drum of alarm.
I am.
Well,
because
let me clarify
sorry.
that.
Mm-hmm.
We're not beating the drum of alarm to, you know, frighten people into, you know, a stupor, or to leave you despondent. That's not why we're beating the drum. We're beating the drum because it needs to be addressed. People need to know what's happening, and there are solutions. But our representatives, as my brother mentioned, aren't interested in any kind of solutions.
No.
They're not.
No, because guys, I mean, especially when you're talking about rainforest clearings, and using that wood for a variety of different things. Okay, we've got companies, based here in the United States that ship it out of the country, and vice versa. There's plenty of places in Canada that ship into the United States, right? And so, I'm just picking on these two countries because we're within the same continent, right? But this is a global problem, and if you have whatever elected leaders in whatever country that are unwilling to address it, the corporations involved just look at that as a green light. Well, no serious pressure, no consequences. Keep it up.
Yep. And indigenous people need a voice at the table.
Yep.
We need a seat at the table.
Agreed.
And not just as a figurehead or decoration.
Nope.
We need to have a voice in the discussion.
And speaking of a voice, if I can use that as a transition to the next story, brother.
Sure.
Okay. The title of this is Pueblos Again Seek Inclusion in Rio Grande Decision Making. Experts say 2022 looks grim for the river, and irrigation season is likely to be brief and dry. This is written by Danielle Prokop for Indian Country Today. Mm-hmm. And Danielle writes, members of 6 New Mexico pueblos are calling for a seat at the table from the body that oversees how the Rio Grande's water is split, managed, and used between states. A coalition representing Cochiti, Santo Domingo, San Felipe, Santa Ana, Sandia, and Isleta attended the annual Rio Grande Compact Commission meeting on May 6th.
Let me interrupt something
Sure.
there for a moment,
Yep.
brother. How the Rio Grande's water is split, managed, and used between the states. Well, guess what? That never used to be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
That never used to be a problem. When indigenous people lived here before contact, didn't have to worry about how much water, X nation is getting, or X tribe or X band is getting.
Yep.
That wasn't a concern.
And I haven't finished some research that I'm doing right now, but I heard in passing during an interview, I believe it was on Face the Nation, where Margaret Brennan was interviewing an individual from the Republican Party who said that they are reviewing treaties relevant to water rights. Now, that's code, guys, if you haven't figured it out already, for how can we screw a tribe more by either ending treaty rights, they're going to break another treaty just so that they can get at more water.
Correct.
This has been done year after year.
Continuously, yep.
And that S is going to stop. Because you're going to F with a fundamental right of many people, at least from, I'm sorry, I have dogs barking above me here. I don't know if anybody can hear that, but you're messing with people's, we'll say human rights first and foremost, but also rights that us as indigenous people have had prior to, again, colonization. And you can only push people so far before people are going to start pushing back. And, I'm not trying to endorse violence or anything like that, but we've seen it in other forms. When people of color get tired of getting pushed around, they take to the streets, right? So why wouldn't this be the case here?
Well, we saw a number of years ago the stand to protect water.
Yep,
So
sure as hell did.
with the pipeline protest.
And then the naysayers that might see or watch or hear or watch this are going, yeah, and then where did that get you? You know, right? Where it got us, for one thing, is it really severely slowed down the Dakota Access Pipeline folks. I'm trying to remember that idiot's name in an interview that I pulled from CBS News several years ago.
I just call him Spunky.
Kelsey Warren, remember? Kelsey
Yeah,
Warren
that's
was his
it.
name. Yep.
The leader of the company behind the controversial Dakota Access Oil Pipeline believes President-elect Donald Trump will help get the project finished. Protesters from more than 200 Native American tribes have been camped out near the site since August. The pipeline stretches from oil fields in North Dakota to Illinois. There are concerns about potential environmental damage. Mark Albert is outside Energy Transfer Partners headquarters in Dallas. He spoke to CEO Kelsey Warren in an interview you will only see here on CBS this morning. Mark, good morning to you.
Good morning. The CEO is breaking his silence as he faces mounting threats and lengthening delays. He still remains bullish on the post-election future of his pipeline, which is now 84% complete. But the final 1,000 feet or so are being temporarily stopped by the Obama administration.
We will get this easement and we will complete our project.
Energy Transfer Partners CEO Kelsey Warren is confident a Donald Trump presidency means his company's controversial Dakota Access Pipeline will be completed.
Once he takes over January 20th, what are the prospects?
Oh, it's 100%.
100% that
The easement gets granted and the pipeline gets built.
The president-elect has minor holdings in Warren's company, and Warren donated $103,000 to Trump's campaign.
Have you spoken to Donald Trump about the pipeline?
I've never met the man.
You've never met him?
No.
But he's invested in you and you're invested in him.
Well, I wish him well.
Thousands of demonstrators in North Dakota have been camped out near several pipeline construction sites, which at times have turned violent and led to over 400 arrests. Native Americans and environmentalists say the pipeline could threaten the water supply of millions and disrespects sacred lands. Warren told us it will make oil cheaper to transport and create jobs.
It doesn't help the United States if it leaks, right? It doesn't help the people who live downstream.
I'm not going to win that argument with you because pipelines do leak. It's rare. I think the chances of this pipeline leaking is extremely remote.
The company says it is taking every precaution to make the steel pipeline safe, and its employees are facing death threats.
Our people have been under attack.
I hope your parents, your children especially, all burn in hell.
When finished, the pipeline will be more than 1,100 miles long. That's just 7 miles shorter than the controversial Keystone XL pipeline, which President Obama rejected in 2015. Trump has yet to speak about the Dakota Access Pipeline, but said this about Keystone last month.
We're going to allow the Keystone Pipeline and so many other things to move forward.
You think all the protesters are going to go away once you're done?
Absolutely. What is there to protest?
They are determined to stop your project.
They will not stop our project. That's naive. They're not stopping our project.
Trump's team did not respond to our request for comment. Warren told us the company wants to reimburse the state of North Dakota and Morton County for the millions spent so far on protests and security, but that authorities have not yet accepted his offer. Nora?
All right, Mark, great interview. Great get to hear that perspective. Thank you so much.
Today he has a name. Tomorrow I'll call him Spunky again.
Yep. Who said Native people are naive was his quote for believing that they were going to stop the pipeline. Well, they did. And they also slowed it down severely.
Yep.
So Mr. Warren was incorrect. And now if you're going to mess around, and that had to do with something that harms the planet. Now you're going to talk about people that are going to renegotiate treaty rights for water?
Right.
Nope.
That's right.
We didn't create the problem, like my brother said earlier.
The mantra "water is life" is a truism, folks. Water is life.
Yep.
Without it, nothing survives.
Exactly. Back to the article here. It says Governor Vernon Albida, and let me explain, the Pueblos, they call tribal leadership their governors, spoke on behalf of the coalition, saying that the Pueblos should be included in all correspondence and meetings that may impact access to Rio Grande water. They should also be invited to future commission meetings, he said, quoting him. In the past, the Bureau of Indian Affairs represented the Pueblos at commission meetings, he said. Now it's time for the coalition. The coalition interacts with the commission directly, and for the commission to engage in the coalition Pueblos so that our voices can be heard. Close quote. He said the Pueblos have cultivated and lived on their land, quote, for time immemorial, and want a formal relationship to manage the water they depend on. Now, for those of you that may not be familiar with the term for time immemorial, we refer to forever.
Yep.
Since the beginning of human life, our people have been here. Our people have lived these lands, and the resources that have been here, I'm using resources because that's what these people seem to understand. But as we talked about earlier, there's balance.
Yep. And we didn't come across a land bridge.
No, exactly. He said the Pueblos have cultivated and lived their land again for time immemorial and want a formal relationship to manage the water they depend on. This also the first time that the Pueblos have sought, quote, a seat at the table. A direct quote from a 1999 request to join discussions on the operating contract between the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District and the Bureau of Reclamation. The United States Department of Interior relaxed rules last month to allow tribes more control over their water rights. The department also established a federal assessment team to help the 6 Pueblos resolve water claim issues between the state of New Mexico and the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District, Albida said. The Rio Grande, fed by a snowmelt, is a vital source of water for irrigating crops, cities such as Albuquerque, and fragile desert ecosystems. Human-caused climate change is shrinking the Rio Grande, melting the snow too quickly in spring and creating thirstier ecosystems that use the water. It also pushed people to use more water to make up for the heat. And this year is looking particularly grim for the river, experts told the commissioners, as meager flows will not replenish reservoirs already at a fraction of their capacity. When the water runs low, the compact limits how and where New Mexico can store it upstream of Elephant Butte, a measure enacted in the 1930s to ensure Texas and Mexico would receive their share. It's going to be another short, dry year for irrigation. The United States Bureau of Reclamation warned in its annual operating plan that the river could run dry through Albuquerque. If the monsoons fail to materialize, Elephant Butte, the state's largest reservoir, could drop about 2% of its 2 million acre-foot capacity. Beyond the climate, there are other legal challenges to the river's water, such as the 8-year-old lawsuit between Texas and New Mexico before the United States Supreme Court, and filings from environmental groups alleging the federal government failed to protect endangered species, including by expanding dams. Quote, our water resources are being adversely affected and are threatened by the ongoing mega drought and climate changes and the Texas versus New Mexico Supreme Court litigation, close quote, Albida said. The Pueblos have unique water rights. In 1928, the United States recognized the Pueblos, quote, prior and paramount rights to the water. Prior and paramount is in quotes. Rights to the water through a total of 20,000 acres of Pueblo land. Much of the water was stored in El Vado Reservoir until this year, when the Bureau of Reclamation started a 2-year project to clean it out. Albida ended his public comment by thanking the commissioners for not objecting to the United States Army Corps of Engineers' plan to store the water owed to the Pueblos in the Abiqui, I believe that is, reservoir for the next few irrigation seasons while El Vado is under construction. So it's kind of a mess, eh? And, predicting, not only a severe drought again and lack of rainfall, but on top of that, now they're having to battle potentially the United States government to, it looks like, outwards to what, 2 different state governments.
Yep.
This is one people that have
Mexico.
to. That's what I'm saying. You have Texas, you have Mexico, and you have the United States federal government that the Pueblos now have to, quote, negotiate with.
Yep.
Imagine if you were in that situation and you had to do that. Imagine you can't just turn on a faucet because you're going to be regulated if you have water at all.
And a lot of this is being created by climate change, man-made climate change.
Yep. It's crazy. And so since we've been on a theme today about water, something else that's been hitting the news as well, it has to do with Lake Mead. I don't know if you've been following that situation, brother.
I have.
Yep. And I have a clip here I've got to pull up. Just give me a second. So just like you heard in other parts of the country, there is concerns about Lake Mead, which is near Las Vegas. And, whoops, now for some reason, oh, hold on. Sorry. Couldn't play something. Why? Because I already have something loaded. It's so much fun being a audio/video engineer while you're trying to do the show at the same time. Oh, now it won't even let me load the video. Okay, well, that's not going to be fun. Let me try it the other way. Sorry, brother. So far tonight,
Quite okay.
So far tonight, I've been having to grab stuff a different way. There we go. All right. So anyway, let me play this story, and it sort of sets up what we've been starting to talk about and have been talking about today. Here we go.
Now to a gruesome discovery over at Lake Mead. Human remains were discovered there over the weekend.
Yeah, let's bring in Kirika Azuka live for us at Lake Mead this morning with what she's learned so far. Kirika?
Yeah. Hey, good morning, Dave. Good morning, Faven. So, of course, this is an ongoing investigation, so we don't have a lot of information at this time, but this is what we know so far. So we know around 3 p.m. yesterday here at Hemingway Harbor, a woman and her family were out here. The woman started screaming because she saw a barrel with what looked like human remains inside. Now, the area was taped off, and Metro was there to help to recover those remains. And the Lake Public Affairs Department did confirm later that they were human remains in the barrel, and the Clark County Medical Examiner has been contacted to find the cause of death. So like I said, this happened around 3 p.m. yesterday. There was a barrel that had washed up on the shore, and the woman saw what looked like skeletal remains inside, and the Lake Public Affairs Department did confirm that it was human remains. So this, again, like I said, this is an investigation that's ongoing, and of course we will update you with the latest on air and online as we get it. But definitely a gruesome discovery here at Lake Mead. I'll send it back.
That cut out a little sooner than I expected. Sorry about that. So this is, as I think the piece pointed out, 2 sets of human remains over the course of 2.5 weeks, I think it is, brother, have been discovered, as they say. And so everybody is starting to speculate, of course. No, number one, because of the drought conditions, now we have that situation where, things are being exposed, and that now apparently is including, human remains. And so now people start wondering, well, Who is human remains? Who are they? Right. So I, just doing a quick search, I just wanted to see if anybody was, how deep that speculation was going. And so I've got an article here from The Guardian with a title that says, "No telling what we'll find. Bodies in Lake Mead spark," ready? "Mob speculation."
Yeah.
Of course. Tony's wondering what happened to somebody, But so here's an article. Here's some highlights anyway. Oscar Goodman, a former lawyer and mayor of Las Vegas, said that the lake feeds the thirst of 40 million people in cities. And again, if you think about the impact of lakes literally drying up, which means no more water at all. So this lake feeds 40 million people in cities, farms, and tribes across 7 western states, and it's down by 30% in capacity. This isn't like 2% or something, guys. 30%. It says if the lake goes down much farther, it's possible some interesting things will surface, said Michael Green, a history professor whose father dealt blackjack at several Las Vegas casinos. Let's just hope that, the water level goes up. We don't need them to know what we know about, You're right. I can't do mob stuff. Anyway, it says the dropping lake level exposed Las Vegas's uppermost drinking water intake on April 25th, forcing the Regional Water Authority to switch to a deep lake intake, which is completed in 2020. The following weekend, boaters spotted the body of a man in a rusted barrel. Lindsay Melvin took photos of a human jaw and called the Park Service. They said the bones were human and that there was no evidence of foul play. Jeff Schumacher, vice president of the Mob Museum, so there we go, predicted that more bodies would be discovered, including drowning victims and mobster bodies stuffed in, steel drums.
Don't forget the cement shoes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so it's obvious, speculation because of the proximity of the lake to, America's probably, arguably largest entertainment venue, right? And given its history and all that kind of stuff. But let's not forget that, especially if these bodies are being recovered and they are in fact, homicide victims, we might have some native people.
Maybe.
That, we're and I hate speculating on this kind of stuff, but again, might not just necessarily be mob folks that, have gone missing. So I hope that they're doing their due diligence, to the best that they can anyway, with respect to these findings and things like that. But anyway, I don't know.
I just sent you a link over on Facebook about that.
Okay.
So.
Well, first we got to look at the source, CNN. That's a problem child right there.
Well, they're only sharing information that everyone else is sharing.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Still a problem child. Because again, like anything else, it like to hype stuff, but needless to say. But yeah, okay. But I think honestly, I think the most important story here is in fact the lake level itself, and that an awful lot of people rely on this source of water. I just wish they would start talking about, have there been attempts to locate other sources of water, and if so, where, and that type of thing. So.
Well, that's a good question. Where?
I have, through our work here relevant to offshore wind, we found out that there's been a very big study that was started like in 2016, and it turns out there is a ginormous aquifer that extends underneath New England and out toward the outer continental shelf. And this is fresh water.
Yep.
And which includes the areas of these wind turbines that they want to put out there. So I'm like, okay, so now where was that information from these so-called developers?
Oh, they weren't going to let that information go. That aquifer is actually part of the ancient freshwater lake after the glacier stopped and formed Long Island Sound.
Yep.
Because Long Island Sound used to be freshwater.
That's correct. Exactly.
Excuse me. So that aquifer is in part, or is in fact part of that leftover lake.
Yep. In fact, since we're talking about that, brother,
the geologic history of Long Island began millions of years ago when an ancient river carved out the basin that would become Long Island Sound. When the glaciers of the last ice age advanced on southern New England, they moved through this basin, carving it out even deeper before coming to a halt. At this point, the glacier's rate of advance was at equilibrium with its rate of melting, and for perhaps 1,000 years, the ice remained in this position, constantly discharging meltwater, along with millions of tons of rock, sand, and gravel. This sediment built up a ridge called a moraine, which about 50,000 years ago formed the south shore of Long Island. As the melting increased, around 21,000 years ago, the ice margin began to retreat, then paused again, forming a second moraine in line with the North Fork. As the ice retreated further, this second moraine acted as a dam for glacial runoff, and the Long Island Sound Basin became a massive glacial lake, which persisted for centuries, depositing tons of sediment in its bottom before draining rapidly around 16,000 years ago. The continental ice sheet was now melting rapidly, and huge volumes of water were returning to the oceans. As sea level rose, the bed of a recently drained glacial lake became filled with salt water, and Long Island and its surrounding waters as we know it today began to take shape. And this is the Long Island we know today.
But anyway, my bag is empty, as we say.
As is mine. Thank you for being with us another episode.
Yes, we appreciate that very, very much. And if you want to comment on anything that you've heard here on the show today, and as in any episodes in the past, or our podcast episodes, as well as anything in video, give us an email at hosts@nativeopinion.com. We'd love to hear from you there. Reach out to us through social media at facebook.com/Native Opinion Podcast, or out on Twitter. It's at Native Opinion over there. Leave us a voicemail or a text message also if you want at 860-800-5595. My name is Michael Kicking Bear. I am a citizen of the Mashantucket Pequot Tribal Nation here in the state of Connecticut. And the man over here to my